Welcome to the very first episode of the Founder's Roadmap. It's the podcast where we explore the surprising, chaotic, and deeply human stories behind the businesses that we admire and those people who own those businesses, run those businesses, work within those businesses. Today's episode is called The Accidental Entrepreneur, and it's all about the people, or I guess the person, who never planned to lead but ended up doing just that. I'm your host for today, Morgan, here from RCS. As I'm sure you already know, our guest today is Chris Lambert, Christopher, if you're nasty. He's the COO and head of acquisitions at Moon Publishing Company, which recently just spun off into two exciting imprints. Moonscapes Publishing focuses on speculative fiction and romance, and Baby Moon Publishing, which champions children's literature. Not to brag, I do have two books under now Baby Moon Publishing, so I have kind of a soft spot in my heart for it. Chris and I have known each other for a while, so if it seems extra friendly and not that professional, that's totally fine. Just bear with us. Chris never really set out to run a publishing company, or I even think be very much involved within a publishing company, but he's here steering two imprints that's changed the game and genre of fiction. So Chris, welcome. And why don't you tell the people a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And sure, no problem. Thank you for Christopher, if you're nasty. I hope I get a lot of DMs for that. I was working in publishing before Min Publishing, but as an acquisitions assistant, I had been a reader for a big publisher, big-ish publisher, not one of the top five, the Harpers out there that specialized in adapting book series into streaming content. The movies that you watch on Netflix, on Amazon Prime, those were us. I always thought of myself as a behind the scenes kind of person. I was knee deep in coverage, option reports, IP tracking spreadsheets, the fun stuff. The funny part is I really wanted to be someone who helped bring those creative visions to life, but I didn't necessarily own that vision. And I think you come from an entertainment background. You definitely understand, big business kind of taking ownership of the creative.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, right. So what changed is that I started to notice how much incredible writing was falling through the cracks, and especially in genres like fantasy, romance, speculative fiction, anything that falls kind of within those bounds. The writing was falling through the cracks, and there was so much richness, but it didn't have a big name. Or fit that narrow marketing box, so it would get passed over. And that really bugged me. It stayed with me.
Okay, cool. I admire that. So how did Moon then come about for you?
Yeah, great question. So Moon, I'm going to start and kind of give you a caveat here. When you asked me to be on this podcast as the entrepreneur, I have to give some credit where credit is due. Our brave leader and CEO, Brandon, he took over Moon Publishing from his father when his father died. So he's really the entrepreneur here who took all of the risks. I came in at a later stage. Not to say that I didn't have to take many risks with him, but as far as the first couple of years of are we going to stay afloat? Are we going to be together? Luckily, I didn't have to climb my way through those. But Brandon and I had known each other for a long time. We grew up in Tennessee together. And he had asked me a couple of years ago when his father died if I wanted to come in and handle acquisitions because it was our background. I said, sure. We then kind of worked very close together, just the two of us, deciding what Moon was going to be as a business. It may shock you and everyone to know that books are not lucrative. Despite what anyone may tell you, it is hard for authors, it is hard for publishers, it's hard for everyone involved. There's a lot that comes with it. A lot of people, a lot of artists don't get the credit. A lot of people need to be paid. So we came up with a strategy to make sure that we were putting out the right books. We were supporting the right authors. We were supporting independent bookstores. And we just kind of built this brand into what it is today. We're still growing. We're always growing every day. So tomorrow there might be another imprint for nonfiction biographies. You never know. It just depends on what's going on out there in the market.
Awesome. I had no idea. That's really cool. So I guess your late stage, was there a moment there, like, when you realized, "Oh my god, I guess I'm an entrepreneur now. I'm no longer just a guy in acquisitions?"
Yes. Yeah, very clearly. It was during a staff meeting I had with Moon right before we officially branched off into our imprints. Brandon, the CEO, was walking through our plans for splitting the catalog, and he looks at me and says, "You're gonna lead the other side." I remember thinking, wait, I thought we were just reorganizing. You mean I'm running it? And the answer was yes. I was suddenly responsible for the sprawling catalog of fantasy epics, romanticies, steaming romance trilogies, children's picture books like yours, with talking vultures and emotional subtext. And I realized this is it. I'm not supporting the business. I am building it. That is my responsibility. I didn't write a business plans. I didn't have an MBA. I still don't. I'm technically still considered a millennial. I guess I'm an aging millennial, so I have as much knowledge of the world as you do at this point. But I had taste, I guess. I had instincts. I had the right people around me. Having that leadership that believes in you, supports you, and offers you the help and resources that you need to succeed, knowing that your success is their success, does everything. So it's kind of a no-brainer, as scary as it was. I said yes, and I've been saying yes mostly ever since. I think the luxury of not having to put in all that high risk at the beginning helped with burnout, and I kind of got a get out of jail free card for the life of an entrepreneur. By the time I got here, it's still a lot of boots on the ground, hard work, but I definitely didn't do it for the money. That's one thing, that's for sure.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. I mean, I think you got kind of the best deal you possibly could out of it, right? Because you're coming in at, like, a very fun time. You get into a world that I think you prefer. If I don't know, if I look at all the things you've put out, they seem very like you, like something I think you would read. I don't know about the romantasy and like the steamy erotic romance, but I'm not judging.
You'd be surprised what sits on my coffee book or my coffee table at home.
Like I said, no judging. We've got some romantasy lovers in this office too. So all right. I'm going to ask you kind of some businessy questions and then we'll get to like the fun stuff because this is a business podcast and I ideally would like to learn a little bit more about the inner workings of publishing. Because I'm going to be honest, you're kind of telling me a bunch of new stuff that I never really thought about before. And it's very interesting to learn the inner workings of your everyday life that I just assumed at this point was reading every day. So what is something that you had to learn the hard way, either within the industry, within yourself, just on this journey you've had so far?
Yeah. Oof. Let me think about that. The hardest lesson, not every author wants to be treated like a business or a business person, and not every author is one. That being said, some authors do like to be treated like a business because their art is their business. When you work in a business like ours, you deal with many different types of people, many different types of personalities. In the early days of splitting into mid scoops, I tried to run things like a machine. It was efficient, lean, metrics driven. And I quickly realized that creative businesses, especially publishing, it doesn't work like that. Our authors weren't just delivering products, they were pouring their identities into the page. And if we didn't respect that, if we didn't build that space, you'd lose the magic. Or worse, we publish lifeless books that nobody loved, spend thousands of dollars on this and lose all of our money in the meantime. I had to learn the balance of structure with softness to create clarity and deadlines, but also provide room for eccentricity, neurodivergence, and joy. It was a real crash course in leadership. And I will say that in the process of growing, I have also made a lot of mistakes in my leadership style. I have missed deadlines. I won't say we haven't paid people on time, but with royalties coming in at different rates for different people, there have been mix-ups and confusion. And luckily we have a great team and a great group of writers underneath us. We're growing at a rapid rate. So everything is growing pains. And I feel really lucky for the team that I have and the authors underneath us to stay with us and work with us and kind of understand that we are still a small company growing faster than we thought and a young company for this new vision that we have.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, I imagine the authors were not happy about not getting their 50-cent royalties from like Amazon Prime. I know sometimes my royalties were behind. So I need that 75 cents when I'm having to buy, I don't know, a piece of gum, if that even counts anymore. So I want to talk shop. Again, businessy stuff. We'll get it out of the way. Running a publishing imprint isn't just about the stories. Clearly, it's a business. You just said it's growing. Your team is growing. The authors are growing. Your imprint is growing. Your regions are growing where you're becoming notable with your authors. How do you approach that side of it? I guess. What is your strategy if you have one?
Yeah. I treat publishing like any other high risk, low margin industry. Those are big, tough industry words, with extreme respect for unit economics and deep love for irrational passion. I hope that sounded good. Books are long tail assets. A novel can earn for decades. It can flop immediately. It can also flop immediately and then earn for decades. So our strategy hinges on two things. Curating the IP is one. It has to have strong backlist potential. So for that, when I say that, we mean series, niche genre fan bases, cross media appeal. Um, will it be on book talk? You know what I mean? Will the girlies like it? All of that has to be taken into consideration. The second strategy, or the second thing it hinges on, is creating operational structures that scale. So with that, I mean print on demand, dynamic pricing, and keeping overhead to surgical precision. And that's a really boring way of saying keeping our costs efficient. We're not afraid to say no to a great manuscript if we can't position it sustainably. And that's been hard, but a necessary muscle to build and something we've had to consider in the last year. Uh, Not to get political, but as a book reader, I think you understand kind of where my politics sit. We've had to deal with the tariffs in Canada, the tariffs in China, and a lot of stuff made here doesn't get made in America. It might get put together here, but we have paper coming from Canada. We have plastics coming from China, cardboard also coming from Canada. So the cost of making a book these days has shot up to an egregious level. So we have to make our book prices go up, which we know is upsetting to the customer. It's upsetting to us. We don't want you to have to pay an arm and a leg for a book. I don't want that either. But it's the nature of the business, and it's really hard to explain that to a customer who just really wants to read the next Crown of Thorns. You know what I mean? So that is one of the hiccups that we're going through now that I personally have never had to go through. I lived through the recession, but again, I wasn't in a leadership role. So this is something that I'm having to navigate through for the first time. And it is a learning curve for all of us. It's just another, brick in the road.
Yeah, I absolutely get that. I didn't even think about putting a book together. For some reason, I just assumed it was all in the United States. And even I know for the Amazon books that, like, if you just publish on Amazon with KDP, I don't even think they're made in the US, and Amazon gets all that profit as well. So, yeah, I can imagine that's been hitting really rough for you guys. A lot of our clients have, similar issues where they want to spend money on one thing they budgeted out for the next 5 years, but because of the tariffs, they've had to pull back on other spending. So I totally get it. Why wouldn't it impact you? And I'm sure with all of the legislation cutting, what is it? Public media, broadcasting, libraries. I'm sure that also impacts you in certain ways too.
Yeah, absolutely. That hasn't hit us yet because all of the defunding won't start until next year. So that's another headache that I can't possibly think about until the time comes or I will explode.
Yeah, trust me, I get it. I get it. The library is a place that I go 2 or 3 times a week, so I absolutely understand. So I will pull this out of the doom and gloom a little bit. So your background is in acquisitions. You clearly know how to train your eye on a good piece of material, even though it may not be something that you can produce. You know what you're looking at. So what is your personal philosophy when it comes to acquisitions? And are you still doing a lot of acquisitions, or have you kind of put that off onto another member of your team?
Yeah, we don't acquire just to bulk up the catalog. We acquire to extend our ecosystem. And again, no offense to a lot of the romance publishers that strictly do romance and they're just doing fast fiction. Some of those books are great. They're being put out by ghostwriters day after day after day. And it's just a full catalog of whatever romance trope you could ask for. Those are awesome for them. I'm sure they make a lot of money, but we don't have the people, the writers, or really the means to do something like that. So we acquire to extend our ecosystem, meaning I look for titles or authors that do at least one of three things. One, can they bring in a new audience segment, like a cozy sci-fi or, neurodivergent children's literature, right? Two, can they complement an existing IP family? Think companion novellas, short story anthologies, art books, spin-offs, things like that. And having worked in the film adaptation world, I'm also looking to see if they have potential for vertical integration, meaning merch and audiobooks and licensing. If I possibly sell them for TV rights, our best performing acquisition last year was a small romance serial with a rabid online following. We didn't just buy the rights, we brought the author in our strategy and co-developed the paperback release. That's where publishing is headed, hybrid creator partner models.
Interesting. Is there any other that you can think of that, I don't know, has been kind of a big hit for you using this sort of model?
There's been a couple of science fiction. Her husband is also one. We've got, I don't want to spoil it because his release is Monday, but there's some cool merch with it. And we are talking to a gaming company about an RPG follow-up, I guess is the right word to say. But I won't spoil it. But yeah, your wonderful author, Talia, is one of them.
That is very sweet of you. Thank you. Okay, well, that's pretty cool. I kind of assumed those might be kind of tenets of what you look for, but I've never actually considered, like, I kind of just assume, will it sell? And could I make something cool out of it to sell to people if they don't buy the book? So, all right, if those are your tenets, how do you measure success inside a creative company? Like, what are, I know, like with us, I have KPIs based on the calls that I make, the emails that I send, how many deals I set up, right? Those are pretty basic that people can understand. But for a creative company, like, how can you really measure success if you know going in that money is not going to be that much, right?
Yeah, so this is the boring business part. You could take a nap during, because I'm going to say a lot of words. We really need two dashboards to measure success. One for logic, one for emotion. And I think a lot of business people will disagree with that last one, but to me, it's very important. We track all of the standard KPIs. We sell through the sell through rates, pre-order conversions, CAC to LVT. That means nothing to you. And if I explain it, you won't care. Return velocity, anything that you can actually measure from someone purchasing a book, returning a book, leaving reviews of a book, right? But we also track author retention, reader engagement time, and submission to signing friction. So how hard is it for a good book to make it through our system? Success for me is when the numbers look clean, but also when our authors feel seen, our readers feel obsessed, and our team feels proud. If one of those legs breaks, the stool tips.
I think that's pretty interesting. Okay, so publishing margins, can be razor thin. What have you done to make your model, I guess, more sustainable, right? Because you can't, I mean, your model's great, KPIs are great, but you can't put a price on emotional, let me see, what did you say? Emotional dashboards? Is that what you said?
Yes. Yeah, you can't really, but three things. So our model more sustainable, that's what you're asking. So print on demand partnerships. We don't warehouse unless there's strong data backing it. Most of our new releases are digital first, and then we only print to offset proven sellers, leaving printing on demand based on those sales. So we can print directly through Ingram, which I believe everyone uses for procurement. It's where all the distributors get their books, libraries, everyone. So that is the first model for sustainability. You threw me off with this question, so I'm trying to sound smart and also answer it directly. Next is direct to reader sales. We've invested heavily in on building our email lists for each author and then exclusive drops through our own channels. That lets us bypass distributor cuts and building brand loyalty. For instance, on pre-orders, the first 50 or 100, depending on how that book seems to be doing marketing wise, we will send it straight from our warehouse with a little goodie inside, a little treat. For instance, with your husband's book in flood, we had tarot cards, right? Those were for the first 50. The book is in hardback. We only printed 100 of those. So those aren't coming from anywhere but us. So we keep those at hand and we sell them directly at a fraction of the rate that it was purchased for. So for those, it's a minor investment, but the payoff is much better. Last is right stacking. So we don't just buy print rights. We look at audio, digital, foreign, and adaptation. Even if we don't develop them in-house, you want the option. And the goal is to de-risk every project while we still leave space for surprise hits.
Okay, no, that makes total sense. I don't know why I assumed like every publisher has a big warehouse stacked with books everywhere, but it makes sense why you wouldn't. And also, I've learned through this journey with you as me and with you, with my partner, also being an author, that I just assumed bookstores have a whole bunch of books all the time, but really on hand, they only have one or two of that title, even if it's extremely popular. And the rest they just order online directly for the same reason. They don't want to hoard books either because it's just investment that is, I don't know, it's a cost on them that they don't want to burden themselves with holding the book. So that is really interesting. Is that kind of a new way of publishing doing business and like bookstores doing business, or has that been going on for a while now?
It's been going on for at least a couple of years. I will say lately it's probably more prevalent as indies bookstores have been going under. They've been getting smaller. They just don't have the space. But, yeah, that's definitely something that's gotten the books have gotten shorter and shorter. They used to order 10 to 20 to have in stock. Now it's 2 or 3, maybe 4 or 5. It's definitely changed.
Wow. All right. So, what is a common mistake that you see with first time publishers or that creative founders make in your opinion? I guess if you've made some of those mistakes yourself, you can also share the goss.
They often confuse aesthetic success with operational success. And I would be surprised to find one creative leader that hasn't done this. A beautiful book doesn't matter if no one sees it. A cool brand doesn't matter if they can't pay the team. I tell new publishers all the time, don't overinvest in vibes before you've invested in systems. Make sure your fulfillment works. Make sure your contracts are clear. And then you could do the fancy book trailers and the shiny covers. Just because the book has the amount of smut in it you think is going to make the world go viral doesn't mean it can pass through the first test of getting someone to pay for the formatting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. I absolutely know what you mean. And also, I'm just going to put it out there because I don't think a lot of people know formatting a book is incredibly hard. For ebook, it is not easy. There's so much that can go wrong. And I don't think people realize that it's like someone does that for a job. Like you pay someone to format your book.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So For your team specifically, not the other imprint, what is next for you? Are there any bold bets that you're working on? And then can you tell me what's going on with your CEO's side, Brandon's side, with taking Moon Publishing, other imprint? What are they doing over there? Because clearly you have speculative fiction and romance and science fiction and children's work. What is happening over there? Because that seems like all the sexy stuff that people want to buy.
Yeah, I think I can handle the sexy stuff better to read than he can. So for my team, we're exploring subscription ecosystems, serialized fiction, early access, behind the scenes content. Think Patreon meets Netflix for books. It won't work for every author, but for most engaged fandoms, it's a huge upside. We're also piloting a creator incubator where we pair emerging writers with editors and designers to co-develop series from the ground up. It's riskier, but we're building our future tentpoles that way. With Moon on the other side, I believe they're taking it in a nonfiction, general fiction, and audiobook. I'm going to be honest. I don't stay a lot in their side because we are basically two different companies now. But from my understanding, it's going to be more of the what your dad and grandpa would read versus I'm what your niece and your cool aunt are reading.
That is a great example. That's awesome. Okay, cool. Well, I'll have to check out a book on that side too because I do like biographies and autobiographies and stuff. So we're kind of getting into the fun stuff now, and then I'll wind down a little bit. So let me see. What book, real or fictional, feels like it mirrors your specific entrepreneurial on, entrepreneurial journey?
It's a hard word. I don't even think I could spell it, if I'm being honest. Uh, I think Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I didn't plan any of this. There was no roadmap. I'm mostly figuring it out while flying through space, holding a towel, hoping I remember to breathe. But also, it's fun, it's absurd, and there's real heart in the madness, like just like publishing.
All right. And which imprint, either Moonscapes or Baby Moon, has surprised you the most so far in your journey with it, even though they're young?
Honestly, Baby Moon. I thought children's publishing was going to be the simple one. Big fonts, cute animals, boom, done. It's the politics of children's publishing that is cutthroat. You have illustrators with waiting lists like tattoo artists, debates over whether bears should wear pants, and don't even get me started on rhyme schemes. Now I have opinions about meter in ways I did not expect. Also, I cry over picture books more than I'd like to admit. They sneak up on you like that.
Dude, we don't have to talk about this now, but I saw a picture book the other day that you're a millennial, so you actually might remember this. In fifth grade or third grade, maybe it was, my teacher read us a picture book. It had pink in the title, and it was about a white boy and a black boy in the South during the Civil War. And like in the book, the black boy's mom was killed. And like that's all I remember from the book. And the black boy was so upset and crying because he couldn't understand like slavery basically and racism. And I remember my teacher cried so hard. And I couldn't understand it because I was a child at the time. And I saw that book the other day at the library. Just I flipped through it. It's a picture book, bawling, bawling my eyes out in the local library, looking like a psychopath.
I told you that they are hard. Sometimes you see a little dog on the cover, you are expect to have a whole emotional breakdown about your divorce by the end of it, right?
Shut up, Chris. That is sad. But yeah, to go back to it, when I was putting out one of mine, this was before Baby Moon. It was just under Moon. But I remember us having a conversation with a distributor specifically. It's about a baby vulture who wants to be a real bird. And the overall theme of it is like, you're perfect the way you are, right? You shouldn't bully people for being different. And there's like a scene in it where he puts on a bunch of berry juice on his face and like tries to make himself a different bird, like a cardinal or something. And there was someone out west who was like, you can't show something that looks like blood in a children's book in the West Market. And I was like, what are you, ma'am? Are you crazy? What are you talking about? But there is so much weird red tape that comes with children's books that I quite literally never knew about. And you taught me all about that. And it's really interesting. That could be like a whole podcast episode in itself, but we won't get there today.
Yeah, it's through, and it is filled with strange people you should never trust.
Okay. So, Chris, we're kind of wrapping up to the end here. Have few more questions for you, and then I promise I will let you go back to your very busy job handling all of your artists. So, if you could choose, if your title wasn't, COO and head acquisitions, what would your title be if you could choose it?
Ooh, I don't know if I can say that on family friendly programming, or maybe chief chaos maker and breaker, because that's what publishing is half the time. Beautiful chaos. Authors in various stages of existential crisis, plots with dragons, and international trade deals. A team trying to turn it into something readers can hold in their hands. So, yeah, kind of two-faced situation. Maker and a breaker of chaos.
Amazing. I kind of feel the same way here, if I'm being honest with you. So, chief chaos maker and breaker, what is something authors do that absolutely delights you? Like, just gives you so much joy from within. And you're like, this makes everything about my job, all the heartaches, all the risks worth it.
I think it's when they fully commit to the niche. Like when the romance writer who sent us her character inspo boards to complete, it was complete with perfume choices and playlists, or the fantasy author who designed their own runic alphabet and then used it to sign their contract. I love that energy. That's the kind of weirdness I want to protect and amplify, and that's why we're here.
That's amazing. Oh my God. So, did you ever have like a fake it till you make it moment before you could get to the point where you have authors signing their contracts in ancient runes, which you might want to take that by legal. I'm not sure if that's like a legally binding contract.
We did actually. It works. Trust me, I had the same feelings as you, but I think it till you make it. You're pitching to a distributor early on, and they asked, how do you handle metadata optimization across imprints? It seems like a normal question for someone, I guess. I nodded slowly, leaned forward, and said, well, we've developed a hybridized system built on story first tagging logic. What does that mean? I don't know. I made it up. I have no idea, but it sounded confident, and we got the deal. Later, we built that system. It's now a real thing. So manifesting works, apparently.
I'm going to take that with me today as I manifest $1 million to fall into my lap so I can pay all of my bills. Thank you so much. And then, what is one thing you will never do again, ever, that you've learned?
There's so many. I think give a cover brief without backup, and that is very specific to my industry and to me. I don't think many people could relate. But early on, I said I wanted something like a storm made of stars for a sci-fi novella. The designer came back with what looked like a rave flyer from 1998. And now we have a roll of visuals where it didn't happen. So I don't care if it's a Pinterest board, a cave painting, or a cursed screenshot. We need those references.
I would like to see a storm made of stars. It sounds like a Coldplay song. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't think I could have come back with anything different either. So, what is the strangest moment you've had as an accidental publishing executive?
Once I had to take a call from an author who was furious, not about edits, not about deadlines, not about realties, but about a typo on the map of their fictional kingdom. They claimed it undermined the political integrity of the empire. And you know what? They were kind of right. So I'm sitting here debating whether Doghelm, Durbalheim would have one in or two. And I'm like, how did I get here? How did I use to review scripts and stories about lawyers? You know what I mean?
Okay, I'm going to need you to be real honest with this one. Was that My husband. You have to be super honest with me. Please tell me.
That's client patient confidentiality.
Fine, fine. I won't ask any further, but people just have different problems. I wish that during my day I could also complain about the political integrity of the empire. You know what though? I do. I do a lot of the time. So I guess it's not just me. But I'm going to be honest with you and come to the end of all the questions I have for you. And this has been extremely thoughtful and honestly very wildly entertaining. I knew it would be entertaining with you, but I didn't expect it to be such a learning experience. So I'm really thankful for you bringing that to us today for a great conversation for our first episode. From fantasy maps to margin strategies, you've given us a front row seat to what it really looks like to lead not just a business, but a creative business that I don't think a lot of people have much insight into. Before we go and I give the final words, do you have any last pieces of advice for the accidental entrepreneurs out there, the ones who find themselves in charge and maybe still feel like they're winging it a little bit?
Let's see here. Embrace the weird. You don't have to look like a typical founder to be a great one. Some of the best businesses are built by people who didn't plan for it. They just said yes to the right chaos. So trust your taste, build systems that protect your people, and don't be afraid to make up the title that actually fits your job. And if all else fails, just pretend you're the main character in a sci-fi novel about learning to lead. I think it'll help.
That's amazing. You should get that on a shirt, I think. But also, last shameless plug, buy Alan Lyle's book, Red Sun Rising, on Monday, the 28th. And Chris Lambert, thank you so much for joining us. You can learn more about his work at Moon Publishing and it's changed now, Moon Publishing Company, and check out their imprint, Moonscapes Publishing, for all things fantasy, sci-fi, and romance, and Baby Moon Publishing for the best in children's literature that won't make you cry, or maybe it will. We're not actually sure. And for our listeners, if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share this with that one friend that definitely stumbled into leadership and has a team depending on them. Or, if they like books, maybe they'll find their next good book here. We'll be back next week with another unexpected journey on the Founder's Roadmap. And until then, keep building, keep learning, keep reading, and don't be afraid to make it up as you go. Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun. I'll come back anytime.